Okay. Um, Apologize. We had some technical difficulties. Not exactly sure what happened there, but we're here now. So let's hop into it. This Impact 2026, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different types of topics from current events, race, religion, everything that you can think of. This is that opportunity that you have where you can join in and give your comments, your opinions, questions, whatever you want to add. Please feel free to do that in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and make sure that you get your comments across. This is a conversation, and so you should be able to put your input in. As always, I'd like to start off by reminding people of the other offerings that we have here. On Thursdays, we have Thursday Thirst, our weekly Bible study. On Sundays, we have our time of worship. And on Tuesdays, today, we have a time of prayer. So on Thursdays, that's at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Sundays, the worship, that's at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Tuesdays, that's at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All those are Facebook and YouTube. The worship service is in person. All right. Just going to hop right into it, even though we're kind of way behind time. Today is going to be just real quick, a little selfish on my part. We're going to do something that is kind of in my wheelhouse, finances, money, all of that kind of good stuff. And so we're going to talk about that real quick. And so we're talking about it in relationship to actually the economy, what's going on. There was a report by one of the major healthcare providers, hospital providers, that came out recently where they were talking about two significant functions of what's been going on out here in the world. This is because of how our government's kind of set up some of the laws that got recently put into place. But the number one thing is surgeries, elective surgeries are down. And so what are elective surgeries? Any kind of surgery that is not mandatory, like, cause loss of life. So elective surgeries, cosmetic surgeries, of course, nose job, all that kind of good stuff. But also things like knee surgeries, shoulder surgeries, just to get rid of some little nagging pains or injuries, rotator cuff, something that it's not necessary for you to be able to survive, but yet it may be one of those comforts to kind of help you out. So a lot of little surgeries, back surgery, just a lot of little small surgeries here and there. I say small, but just elective surgeries, non-mandatory surgeries. They're down because people are not getting them because of the cost of healthcare. And then another part, so that was number one. The second part of it is that the hospital providers was showing is that the number of people who are uninsured has gone up significantly. Okay. And so these are not elective surgery situations. These are people who have to come into the hospital. They just don't have any money, or not they don't have any money. They don't have any insurance. In many cases, they don't have any money, and so the hospital has been paying a lot out of pocket. Hospitals across the country have been paying a lot out of pocket to cover a lot of the people who just can't pay because they are not insured. And the number one reason they cite for people coming in who are not insured is because people are dropping off of the American Care Act, also known as Obamacare, or Affordable Care Act. Not American, I'm sorry. The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, which has been established and been going on, for almost 10 years now. And so, actually over 10 years now. And so what has happened is it's gotten expensive. The government has stopped, covering a lot of or subsidizing a lot of the costs, and now people can't afford their health insurance, so they're just dropping. When the cost of care goes from $100 a month, and you've heard horror stories about people where it's gone up to $1,000 a month, or it's gone up to $2,000 a month. People just drop it and just roll the dice. It's like, look, if I get sick, I just got to go to the hospital. And if there's anything that's not an emergency where the hospital's not going to cover it, I'm just in trouble. And so that's what's been going on. It's been going on at a much, much larger rate, very increased rate. Right now in 2026, it is uh, at a very high rate where people are just uninsured, and they said it's going to get worse unless the government tries to subsidize what's going on. Why is this important? Why are we talking about that? Because it comes down to health, it comes down to people's lives, um, and how we take care of one another. And so, more important than ever before, as the community, as a church, we need to try to be as healthy as possible. Because the reality of the matter is, less and less people have the ability to have health care. If you have a good job, you work a good job that provides you health care, great, good for you. You got to remember that a lot of people don't. A lot of people are part-time workers and they don't get health care. A lot of people are self-employed. You own your own business, have your own job. You're not getting health care. Some people are in between jobs. You're not getting health care. If you're not old enough to get on some of the other healthcare products, and you're not, in a financial situation where you can qualify for some of the healthcare products, talk about basically Medicare and Medicaid, if you're not able to get those, a lot of people are just out here without insurance. Again, if they're not getting it through their employer, because insurance is expensive. And so now, since the Affordable Care Act, subsidies are not being covered, people are not getting, getting enough subsidies that they can afford to pay the monthly premiums. A lot of people are going uninsured. So what does that mean, I think, for the church? Or what does that mean for people in general? I think it means we have to try to be healthy. Now, what does that? We can't stop injuries. We can't stop illnesses. We can't stop, just things that happen. And you have to go to the hospital. And unfortunately, if you're not going to get, if you don't have insurance, you're going to be in a bad situation. But what we can do on our side is to try to reduce some of that by being as healthy as possible. And I think that's one of the responsibilities of us to take care of one another and lean on one another, is to be healthy as possible. What does that mean? One person, I was talking to a person, they were talking about exercising. They were like, look, everybody can't exercise, but it's better to do something than nothing. All right, so if you can't go to the gym, then maybe exercise at the house. If you can't exercise at the house, then take a walk. If you can't take a walk, then just get up and move around your home, your apartment, wherever you're at. But they were saying that, for us as people, something is better than nothing. Everybody should do something outside of walking to work or walking to school or walking to the refrigerator. We got to do just a little bit more to kind of, our bodies are made to move. Our bodies are made for strength and some other things. I'm not a health nut professional type person, so don't think that I'm going there. But in order to kind of keep ourselves in a good space physically, we got to move. The other thing is we got to watch what we eat. We got to start. We all need to continue to eat healthy. If you're not eating healthy, start to eat a little bit healthier. Watch our salts and our sugars and everything like that. And this stuff is, I think it's important for us to encourage one another, because in order to be able to do the work, whatever work that you do, if you're working at the house, or let's say we want to do the work in the community and be able to help people, you got to have a certain level of energy and a certain level of health to be able to do those things. And so I think that because now we know that the way that the economy is set up currently, the way that the government, the priorities that the government has made, it's made it hard and difficult for people to have health care. And so I think it is our responsibility to encourage one another to be as healthy as possible, encourage one another, because if you don't have health care, the best thing you can do for yourself is try to be as healthy as possible. Now, if you get sick, none of that matters. If you get into an accident or an injury, none of that matters. But we can reduce some of those some of those illnesses that are self-inflicted. Some of our diabetes, where we kind of put that on ourselves. Some of our high blood pressure situations. Some of our cholesterol situations. Things such as that. So a lot of issues that may come with weight or inactivity, because we're going to have to start to take care of ourselves. So not that you got to be all holistic and thinking like, okay, I got to change my whole lifestyle around and try to be hippie or whatever. No, we're not talking about all that, but just being a little bit more conscious of the fact that, look, the hospitals struggling, and so there's a trickle down effect from the government not funding healthcare. There's a trickle down effect because the prices in these hospitals are going up, which means even if you have insurance and you go, it's still going to cost more in your pockets. Whether it costs more in your premiums or whether it costs more when you show up, your copay or whatever you have to pay out of pocket. And so, in order to kind of combat that a little bit, we need to make sure that we start taking care of ourselves, start eating right, start exercising, start moving. So that's number one. And put that out there really quick. The second thing is, because we're talking about finance and in my wheelhouse, there's this new thing they call Trump accounts. These are these savings accounts for kids. And so these accounts are kind of like IRA accounts or investment retirement accounts, individual retirement accounts, 401ks, that kind of stuff. It's an investment account for kids, ages 0 to 18, where they can put money aside in their account and they can grow until they're 18 in a tax advantage situation. If they continue it can still grow. And so some people are thinking it's a new trick to get rid of Social Security, but it's an opportunity for kids to start growing some wealth. And there's projections all over the place. If you put in $1,000 when you're first born, so everybody between 2025 who's born between 2025 and 2028, if you get an account. So if your parents, if we set up an account, grandparents, if we set up an account for our kids, and they have an account, they will get $1,000 from the government. So anybody born between 2025 and 2028 will get $1,000 free from the government. And if they say if you continue to contribute to the account, compounding, all that kind of good stuff, by the time you turn 18, the typical kid should have somewhere between 100 and, somewhere around $180,000. Wow. And that's because of compounding, and that's if it's in the stock market and it grows about 6% every single year, 7% every single year. And you'll have that kind of money. And if you keep it and you continue to put money into it, by the time you're in your 40s, you should be somewhere, you should have $1 million. Two things with that. One, $1 million today is good. It's really good. $1 million 40 years from now may not mean as much. So probably still be something good, but may not mean as much. So it is a great thing to have. It is a great way to build up some wealth, but it may not mean as much. But here's the thing I'm gonna put out here. They're touting it as this is a great thing. It's great to give everybody a little piece of the stock market, to have everybody have some kind of retirement vehicle, to give every kid an opportunity to grow their money, or to have some kind of nest egg or fallback. Now, it would be terrible if they got rid of Social Security and tried to replace it with this. That would be a bad thing. And that's what a lot of people thinking of, and that's what they're trying to do, they're trying to get rid of Social Security. But one of the things they try to tout is that it levels the playing field by giving everybody an opportunity to have wealth. Kind of like levels it out. And so I am here as somebody who does finance, does a little economics, does a little bit in the money, in the market, and things like that. Just want to remind people, that we shouldn't get fooled. Don't get fooled and don't get tricked on what we have going on. These Trump accounts are good in the sense of, yes, you can put money aside for your kids and your grandkids, your loved ones, nieces, nephews, whatever, and it can grow. And people can contribute up to $5,000 in it every single year. But that's where the benefit kind of ends. It's not an even playing field. One of the guys who kind of was the inventor of this, seems like a cool guy. He comes in and he talks about the fact that it's such a great vehicle because everybody will be in the stock market. The government is giving $1,000, and then different businesses. So if you work for Visa was like, we're going to give all our employees, we're going to fund their accounts for their kids. And so we're going to put $1,000 in all their accounts. And then he was like, no, Visa, you shouldn't do that. Don't just give $1,000 to all your employees' kids. What you should do is you should adopt 100 different schools throughout the nation and give $1,000 to all the kids at that school, $1,000 to all the kids at this school. And he was like, once you do that, then all the kids all around, and I'll get other people who are donating, and I'm donating, and da 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 da. And what we'll do is we'll have a situation where we can really level the playing field, and everybody can have a little bit of wealth. Sounds great until you really sit back and look at what they're saying. Even if Visa is going to give all the employees that they have, and I don't know if y'all know this, Visa is a Fortune 500 company, so it's one of the top 500 companies in the world. Uh, if you are an employee at Visa, you're probably doing pretty good because you're getting paid pretty good. And so those benefits that you have, you're already middle class, upper middle class, and so you're already getting a good amount of money, and now your kids are getting $1,000 in their accounts. And then, what if Visa and some other companies decide we're going to adopt a school over here and adopt a school over there, and we're going to put $1,000 in their account? Well, what schools you think they're going to adopt? Who do you think is going to get this $1,000 in their account or whatever in their account? It doesn't become a situation of where it levels the playing field. It becomes just a wealth transfer, the haves and the have-nots. So all the parents who already work at great companies and are getting a great salary, they're going to have a company match, and their kids are going to get $1,000 in their account. To all the people who are just in the right neighborhoods, who goes to the right school, or who are connected to the right wealthy person, they're going to get $1,000 in their account. But all the other folk, all of the millions of other kids who don't happen to have parents who are in these companies where they have a company match, all of these other kids who don't happen to be at the right school at the right time, or don't or not connected to some wealthy donor, they're not going to get any extra money in their accounts. And so, as much as we think that it's good, and again, it's only a max. The max is $5,000. That's all you can put in there each year. So even with all of the schools and everything like that, the max you can put in there is $5,000 a year. But if I don't have anybody to put $5,000 in my account, when my $1,000 ends up at 18, I'll have between $3,000 and $4,000. Whereas the other person, where they got $5,000 in their account every year, when they turn 18, they're gonna have $180,000. It doesn't sound like leveling the playing field to me. What it sounds like is, let's go ahead and make it easy for people to transfer wealth to their kids and their grandkids. They can do $5,000, which will be tax free to them, the person who donates, and $5,000, which will be tax free to the kid who receives it. So just an easy wealth transfer. So we can transfer $5,000 to kids every single year, the kids of our choosing, and then other kids who are already in situations where they don't have the upper hand, they can remain without the upper hand. And so now they can have a double. They can be doubly behind because you're behind because you didn't have money in the first place, or you didn't come from money, and you're behind because all the people who came from money had this extra $180,000 when they turn 18. And so it's not a wealth transfer; it's a trick. It's not well. It's a wealth transfer. It's a trick. It's not leveling the playing field. It's a trick. And so and I say this as a trick. It's not a trick because the people who put it together were having bad thoughts. It's just the people who put it together didn't think about the least of those. Who didn't think, haven't been really truly in the community and been able to talk to people about how things work. If you have to pick and choose, if you have to be somebody who's lucky in order to get the advantages, in order to get the extra money, in order to get the $5,000 a year in these Trump accounts, then if you're lucky and you get all that money, great. But if you're not lucky enough, then that puts you even further behind. Because now there will be millions of kids who have these accounts who will have $180,000 or more dollars when they turn 18. And then there'll be millions of more kids who have these accounts who only got a couple $1,000 because they don't have parents who are wealthy enough to put $5,000 in their accounts every year. They didn't have parents who worked at an organization where they had a company match. They didn't go to one of the special schools which these wealthy benefactors picked. They were just a regular old person, regular old kid going through life with their Trump account, and it just grows with no extra to it. And so yeah, it's great. And when I was 18, I would have loved to have $4,000 in some account. But I would not love to have to try to then turn around and compete or try to go to schools with people who have $180,000 in their Trump accounts and I got $4. Why did I talk about this? Why it's important? Because it's important that we remind people that when you're making decisions, um, and we remind ourselves that when we try to pick decision makers, that we have people who have some experience in experience dealing with people from different backgrounds, experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion, experience with thinking through the process of knowing that there are different people in different situations. Because if we had some diversity of thought, if we had somebody who had some thoughts about equity, about how this would be fair, or inclusion, or who would be included in when we start doling out all of this extra money, they would have thought through the process and maybe have said, hey, as much as we think these accounts are fair, they're not fair if we make it so that the haves, it's a situation of haves and have nots. Yeah, there will be a bunch of people in poor communities um, who will get $1,000 free from a company over here and $1,000 free from a company over there. But there'll be a bunch of people in other communities, whether they be poor, whether they be middle class, whether they be right there at the cusp of between being middle class and not middle class, they won't get the $1,000. They won't have growth in their accounts. And what it will do is it'll bring a financial gap, or even wider financial gap between them and their peers. And so, again, this is not to beat down the Trump accounts. Please go get one. Get your free $1,000 if you have a kid between now and 2028. Uh, Go ahead and get one and invest for your kids. But let's remember, though, that it is important to think about those who we don't see, those who we can't touch. Because when this was created, it was not thinking about all kids. It was just thinking about the tunnel vision of, yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to give kids an opportunity to be in the stock market, and then everybody in the country will get that $1,000, and then people will be able to donate, and family members will be able to put money into their accounts. But there are a lot of people who don't have that. Plenty of kids in foster care who don't have anybody to put extra money into their accounts. You would know that if you thought about them. Diversity, equity, inclusion. There are a lot of schools that are way off in the middle of nowhere who are not on the radar of Visa or Delta or Morgan Stanley or any of these big giant organizations that's going to match, do company matches on all the donations put into their kids' accounts. And then what about all the people who are homeschooled? They're not a part of a school. And so when they're doling out all of this money to all of these different schools, they're not going to get anything. Again, I think it's important for us to realize, especially as a church, because sometimes we get into that kind of thing too. When I hear the craziness of church folks saying we should be able to take care of the community, everybody in the community, without the government. We only can take care of who we can see. We only can take care of who we know. And for some people who call themselves Christians, they would say that for some people who call themselves Christians, they only want to take care of other Christians or other people who want to come to the church. When that's not what should be going on. You have to be able to see and touch, feel, and think about people who are not like you, of different faiths, different religions, faiths and religions, different backgrounds, different economic standings, different cultures. You think about your race, you got to think about somebody else's race. And we're not thinking about others when we start to put together some of these programs. Again, it's one of those unintended, sometimes it's an unintended consequence. I'll put this on a lot of people's head and not their heart. But the problem with your head, though, is there's a lot of things going on, especially with the current government that we have now, where they've decided that diversity of thought, having different people in the room, is not a good idea. Diversity, equity, inclusion is not a good idea. That's what they think. And they're wrong, because it's a great idea, because then it lets you have reach so that you can know about people that you don't know about. And so when you go out here now, the two things we talk about. One, it's the healthcare. Look, we're in a bad situation financially as a country. Economics, whatever, you look, stock market, great, whatever. But when we have people increasingly losing their healthcare because they can't afford it, we got to make sure that we can do whatever we can do. One of those things is Let's encourage one another to kind of take care of ourselves and be as healthy as possible. Again, realizing that that does not stop illness or injury. And then number two, let's not get fooled when it comes to what people are trying to do when it comes to these investment accounts, especially for the little kids. It is not making an opportunity to put everybody on a fair playing field. It is driving us further apart. And the reason that is, and again, I'm being, what's the word, kind, on rose-colored glasses. I don't think they did it on purpose, but I think there's a ignorance from not embracing diversity. There's an ignorance from not embracing equity, and there's an ignorance from not embracing inclusion. And so, because you didn't include them in the thought process, you didn't include a lot of people in the benefit of these programs. All right. Well, thank you again. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties at the beginning. As always, I like to remind what we have going on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. We have Bible study, weekly Bible study, which is Thursday Thirst. Please join us for that. That's on Facebook and YouTube. On Sundays at 10 o'clock a.m., we have a time of worship. That's on Facebook, YouTube, and at the address that's sitting right here on the screen. And then on Tuesdays, we have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. Please pray with us. Not the whole time, just sometime in between there. If you pray sometime in between 7 and 7:45, you are praying with the ministry. And then, of course, we have Impact 2026. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again next week as we go in and we dive into these topics and we discuss the events that are affecting our lives. Thank you and have a good one.